So let's think about what is the goal of Livepeer. I'm going to go through this dance and figuring this out also, so just bear with me. Here we go. So today I'm going to talk about two things. One is, what is Livepeer? And two is the fundamental, like kind of the underlying economic principles in the Livepeer network, which is staking and inflation. Before I get into it, I just want to get a show of hands to see how many people have heard of Livepeer. Okay, about half of the room. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will just give a very quick introduction of what the project is about. Livepeer is, like I said, decentralized video infrastructure. So what does that mean? It means if you want to build a video-based application on the internet today, so if you want to build a YouTube or a Netflix or a Twitch or anything that involves video, you need to pay. You need to build the application on top of some video infrastructure, right? You need to get the video encoded. You need to deliver the video to the viewers, millions of them around the internet, and that's a very complex thing, right? 10 years ago, we didn't have that, and this kind of came out of the fact that we now have enough bandwidth in our homes where we can actually deliver those video bits fast enough that we can stream the thing, right? And I remember a day when Netflix was not a streaming company; it was a DVD rental company, right? And that was when video streaming didn't exist. So we very recently went through this evolution. So the mission of Livepeer is to create a common video infrastructure that's dramatically more reliable and more affordable than these current available private infrastructure. So these private infrastructure can be Amazon, can be Google, can be anybody who's providing the video services on top of these cloud. Maybe they use their own data center. But the idea here is that using a decentralized and peer-to-peer based architecture, we can actually build a network that provides better quality of service at a cheaper price. And I'm going to go through kind of the building blocks of how that works. But first, we can talk about some of the use cases of having this decentralized video infrastructure. What do we do with it? Why is it useful? One is we can start to build applications that are hard to censor, right? When a conflict breaks out in a country, one of the first things that gets cut is the video feed. But now we have a way to, citizens and people have a way to combat that. We can create automatically scalable video services. So video streaming is one of, especially live event streaming, is one of these notorious things where all of a sudden a very popular event happens and there's a lot of demand in terms of bandwidth, in terms of computation, and that event lasts for a little bit and then it finishes and then the demand goes away, right? So ideally, we want to have a network that dynamically scales based on the demand of the network, so that we're not wasting a lot of capacity, when there's not a popular thing that's happening. We can create pay-as-you-go expertise networks. So these are the things that allows people to pay by the minute and by the second on the video, instead of today we're kind of locked into these pre-built business models because we don't have the granularity to pay for this specific small portion of the service that we want to use. Okay? And of course, any kind of decentralized applications. So a couple weeks ago there was a hackathon in Cape Town, and one of the teams built an application called DTalk, which is a decentralized version of TikTok, and that was a statement against. It was actually because the week before that, India shut down access to TikTok for their entire country, right? So these are hackers who are working on interesting applications to fight for that. So another interesting thing that's happening here is that about 80% of all the traffic on the internet is video, right? And that's a tremendous amount of data, and that's only growing at a faster rate than ever. We all know that every night we go home, we watch Netflix or YouTube, so we probably shouldn't be surprised by this graph. But it's the amount of video that's going through the internet is tremendous, and almost all the video that gets delivered on the internet needs to be processed, right? So it needs to be transcoded and encoded into different versions, and we'll talk about how Livepeer solved that problem. So here's kind of how the traditional video streaming workflow works, right? So you have a broadcaster that's sending a video feed into a cloud-hosted media server, right? So this media server is similar to, imagine like a web server, that's serving web pages. So this media server serves video, it serves media, right? And the media server does a few really important things. One is it transcodes the video into many different bit rates and many different formats so that it can be delivered to anybody around the world using any device under any network condition, right? So if I'm walking on the street with my cell phone, I can watch the same video as you who's sitting at home with a high-speed internet connection on a HDTV, right? But we're actually watching different versions of the video, and the transcoding is what enables us to do that. The media server also stores the video, it encrypts the video in case we want to have privacy or we want to control access. The media server delivers the video into a content delivery network that then sends the video to millions of viewers around the world. So this is kind of how it works on a high level, right? And for Livepeer, we want to basically replace the cloud with a decentralized network, right? Simple as that. So for the users who are on the two sides, right, either the broadcaster or the content creators or the viewers on the other side, it's the same for them. They don't notice any difference. But the difference happens in the middle in kind of how the sausage is made, right? So now we have a decentralized network that can take care of all the operations that need to happen on this traditionally cloud-hosted instances that these service providers charge a lot of money for. So the problem goes, right? So if we don't have these service providers, then how can I just trust some random computer on the network to do the work for me? How do I know they're not inserting weird videos in the middle of my stream, right? How do I know they're actually doing the right work? How do I know they're delivering to the right person? And that's where one of the principles of the crypto economics in this network comes in, which is that the crypto economics provides security for the network. It provides trust, so that as a user, I can trust that I don't care who is doing the work for me. I know that the person who's doing the work is doing the correct work because the person has elected to play this economic game by joining this network, right? So just by the virtue that this person is involved in this network and processing my video, I can trust that the work is done correctly. And that's done through staking, right? So here's a list of all the a bunch of active transcoding nodes that's on the Livepeer network. And and staking is basically a mechanism that says you lock up your token for a short amount of time. And in exchange, you get to elect somebody to do the work for you, to do the work. So imagine I have some Livepeer tokens, and I know somebody who has really good computer skills and knows how to run servers. I can say I will stake my token toward this person. And so in a way, you are doing the QA on the network by picking who's going to do the work in the most efficient manner, and also, let me go back. One more. And also there's now a skin in the game, right? So if the node ends up doing the wrong thing, so if the node is this person that I stake towards is malicious and is inserting random video in the middle of somebody else's stream, that person gets slashed, and I also get slashed, which means I lose the token that I stake towards them. Right? So that gives me incentive to make sure that I'm staking towards a trustworthy person. And the slashing in the Livepeer network also happens in this decentralized way through a smart contract that currently runs on the Ethereum network. And the idea goes, if I was a broadcaster and I sent my video to an orchestrator who's doing the work, I can issue a challenge to the smart contract that says, I challenge the validity of this video. And then there is a decentralized mechanism that's called TrueBit that can basically tell us, oh, is the challenge successful or not successful? And if the challenge is successful, then I get to punish the orchestrator. And this can happen for anybody who wants their work done on the network. And that's how we create this decentralized police force that ensures the security and the validity of the work that's being done. So as a staker, why do I participate? Right? Like I don't just want to be punished. And the incentive is that I get to earn fees. Right? So the people who are doing the work on the network gets paid in Ether, or currently, but in the future in any stable currency for doing the video processing work. And by staking my token towards them, I get a portion of that fee. And I also, at the same time, get a portion of the inflationary token that's being minted every block. So very similar to the block reward concept. Right? So there's two types of revenue that's coming through. One is the fee that's from doing the work. Another is the inflation that happens in the network itself. So as a node, I can decide what's the reward cut and the fee share that I want to have for people who stake towards me, right? So for example, I want to share 5% of the inflation that goes toward me to the people who are staking toward me, and proportionally, and I want to share 50% of all the fees that flows toward me to the people that stake toward me, and these are adjustable parameters. And there's an open marketplace that people are competing for the stakes and the fees that flow through them. So if we look at the current status of what what the Livepeer network is doing, there's an interesting mechanism here that's called participation target. And what that means is the inflation adjusts based on the target of participation, the targeted participation. And what that means is the amount of total token that's being staked in the network. Right? So the current target is 50%. And what that means is if the amount of token that's staked is less than 50%, then inflation increases over time. But if it's more than 50%, then inflation decreases over time. So the network itself adjusts for a specific amount of participation. And that's important because the Livepeer network itself is providing the utility of processing video for other people. And the participation in the network is vital for the quality of the service that this network provides. Therefore, this target ensures a certain amount of participation so that the network stays providing the service that the network provides stays high quality. Can I go back? Thank you. So that's about the security and so that's the incentive on the security side of kind of like how the video gets worked out. Another interesting aspect about the incentives here is how do we build a decentralized tech project? How do we build an ecosystem around this software, right? So if no one runs the software is just a piece of software that doesn't provide any value. But what creates value is people running the software, is the infrastructure providers, it's the people who are building tools around around this ecosystem. It's people who are building applications, people, all kinds of people providing value that makes this ecosystem viable and a thriving ecosystem. So, so what do I mean by a core development of the ecosystem, right? So, for example, wallets. People need to have wallets in order to use the tokens. Block Explorer. People need to have these websites to look into what's actually happening in the network. There are scaling solutions, right? So all these things that need to be built in this ecosystem cannot be built by the core protocol developers because it's too much to build, right? So how do we incentivize all the vital tools in this ecosystem to be built so that the value can be created in this entire ecosystem? And that's where inflation comes in. We call this inflation funding, right? And the idea is that the inflation of the network itself funds the development of the network, and not just of the core protocol, but of all the different aspects. That's community building, that's infrastructure development, that's application development, even and hardware operators. So these are the infrastructure providers. They all get a cut, and they all get a share in this inflation. And it's as simple as running a node, right? If you run a node, if I run a node, I can say, hey, everybody, I'm actually building a really important piece of infrastructure in this ecosystem. So if you want this ecosystem to succeed, please delegate your token toward me. And if you are a token holder that believes this thing is important, then you delegate your token towards them. So because of this simple mechanism, a lot of things have happened in the past year since the Livepeer network has gone live. There are a lot of decentralized communities that have popped up around the world. This particular one is in Berlin, and they like streaming like basement concerts for artists, or they go around and they stream decentralized events. There are applications that are built for the network itself. This is a block explorer similar to blockchain.com for blockchain.info for Bitcoin, or Etherscan for Ethereum. This is built for Livepeer, and it's built by a community member who decided this is important. And this inflation basically happens on a daily basis, right? So as your and that's what keeps people accountable. As long as you're providing value for the ecosystem, you continue to get inflation, which funds your work, your operation. Go back one second. So if you look at some of the benefits, right? So it creates new opportunity for new entrants. If I'm new to the Livepeer network, I can earn token. I can in exchange and basically earn ownership of the network through doing the work for the network. This is a very organic and decentralized way to fund development. So nobody's making centralized decisions to say who gets funding to do what. The community itself is making the decision. There's a very positive community-oriented social impact in how this community gets formed, and it also creates these interesting opportunities to do experimentations. Right? So, for example, there are nodes in a network right now that are trying to operate as a DAO. Right? So instead of a single node operator, it's a decentralized autonomous organization run by a bunch of people. And yeah, so those are some of the takeaways. So I would say the two things that really incentives and crypto economics really creates value in the Livepeer network is, one, it creates trust for the core functionality of the network itself, which currently is video transcoding. And the other is it creates this whole ecosystem and this whole community around this project so that the participants naturally get value and they naturally want to participate. So that's my talk. Thank you.